you get an issue like helping veterans, and you get a lot of people that come forward to help. We have our mentor team. We have 20 mentors who sponsor our veterans, are there for them in between the court sessions, which are every 2 weeks. Initially, they get strung out when they're starting to make progress. Our coordinator for the mentors is a former national commander of AMVETS. So he's got a tremendous amount of contacts. They have just got $20,000 grant from Home Depot, because they had bought an old church and they're remodeling it, and they have a training center there. Sort of a one-stop center for veterans to come in for training, to access the internet for opportunities, to have counselors there. It was done on the internet on a voting procedure where people vote who should get the award. They receive that. They're automatically in the final round for $250,000 in funding. So this is the kind of people we have that get involved and help us. We had, about 6 months ago, we had our first graduate. Was a Marine veteran, was in the Marine Corps 10 years, got into drugs, got out, had a broken family, divorce. He got in the program and went through it twice. That you have to quit? The robots are taking over the world. Thank you. So he said he's going through the program twice. He said, I'm a Marine, I'm going through twice. You want to make sure he got it right. He did graduate. He went out to California where his family was and reconciled with his family. He's now in training for the ministry. And he called the other day and said that his wife, who was very sick, had died. But he said if it wasn't for our court, he would not have had to spend the last 6 months with her. So those are kind of the benefits that you don't even intend, but happen. Our second graduate got a job in Virginia in hospital administration. He got his act together, went through the training. Our third graduate, which we just had within the last couple of weeks, works for the Air Force as an Air Reserve technician. And he had charges which would have cost him his job. He was able to go through the program, complete it, get the charges dismissed, which saved his job. He had a nice paying job as an Air Reserve technician, made a mistake, but he was able to save his job. And we have about 25 in the program right now in varying stages, including 2 females who have just entered the program. And we have male and female mentors which are available to help them, through our mentoring program. Some of the things that are going on with us, we've been partnering with Ohio University, and just did a radio program for them, which should be on their website as soon as they get it up, talking about Veterans Treatment Course. And we had a professor from Ohio University who's been observing our Veterans Treatment Court, and she is doing a project working with the veterans. When they come in, she gives them a camera, and she wants them to take pictures of significant events along the way, to record them and make notes, the good and the bad. Along with our successes, there's always going to be setbacks. We've had 2 of our veterans die while they're in the program, one of natural causes, One just died of gunshot wounds. He was shot in his home. Probably related to drug issues because that's what he was in there for. He started to participate and then disappeared. We had a KPS for him in the meantime. He gets shot. Justice Stratton mentioned the task force on mental illness and the criminal justice system, which Tammy Puff and I co-chair the committee. And some of the things we've been working on there were, as Justice Stratton mentioned, trying to look at the federal sentencing guidelines, which requires consideration of military service in sentencing, which Ohio never had. And at Justice Stratton's recommendation, we pursued that, and I talked to our Senator, Joseph Schiavone. Was Matt Howell here today? Matt Howell is the staffer we're working with. He was going to try and come over. Senator Schiavone is back in the district now. But he introduced the bill, and the last I heard it was in a Judiciary Committee, and they were hoping after the election to get some movement on it. It's now substitute Senate Bill 330. And this will make judges aware of this consideration, because just like before we never asked defendants if they were veterans, now we'll have to ask if they have veteran service for purposes of sentencing. We ask at our initial appearance when individuals come into the system. We identify them there. On top of each bench is a sign. If you are a veteran, had military service, let your lawyer know or let the bailiff know. And then we identify the jacket. And it's amazing, if you identify a veteran, that people look at them differently. You know, they look at somebody who was once responsible, once had a lot of resources at their command, had the power of life and death, as opposed to maybe a gangbanger that dropped out of high school, never really accomplished anything. You have a different challenge there, and you have different needs there. I have a military environment, and first time they appear, we have a contract they sign. They've got to comply with the contract, make sure they understand it. And then they, in effect, plead guilty, have the sentence hanging over them. And I've had individuals come in, said, have you read the contract? He said, yes, sir. And you know, most of them, when they come in, they'll come to attention, and it starts coming back to them, the environment they're in, because we make it as military as possible. So yes, I have. I said, and do you want to do that? Are you willing to make a commitment and do that? Thank you, Michael. And I've had people say, no, I'd rather go to jail. It's easier. I just sit there and watch television. So those that make the commitment and get in the program, they know what they're dealing with. And I don't use a gavel. I use a whistle, which gets their attention. You're in basic training, they don't use a gavel. They use a whistle. And I had one individual come in shorts. And we have all over the place, on the subpoenas, all over the walls, what the proper attire is for court. Came in shorts, and the security guard wouldn't let him in. I said, let him in. He come in, and he was a good troop. He just ran out of time and something happened. And I said, what would your commanding officer do if you showed up in shorts? He said, I'd probably make me do 100 push-ups. Well, you got a choice. You do 100 push-ups or you go to jail. Well, he did it. Not too many of us in here can do. Maybe Kurt Laughlin can do 100 push-ups.
Yes, sir. I could.
Maybe he'll show us. I'd rather go to jail. Yeah, I get that too. I just go to jail. It's easier. But he did it, and somebody had their iPhone, and now it's on YouTube somewhere. This guy doing his 100 push-ups. So we have a little levity, and we try to keep it as light as possible. But when it's time to get serious, sometimes we have to shift gears fast. And right after graduation, we maybe get a person who comes in, had a bad test, didn't go to his appointments. He may go on house arrest. He may go into jail for a little bit. So we change gears quickly and do whatever's necessary. So far we have, for those individuals that are in the program and our graduates, we haven't had anybody come back. You always have a couple that you can have more challenges than others, but since we're at the end of the food chain, everybody else has failed. Everybody else has had a crack at them, and we're their last resort. Some of the other things we're working on in the task force is trying to get a military veterans committee in every bar association, and working with Colonel Auckland. He came to Youngstown, put on a CLE, continuing legal education program for the lawyers in Youngstown. And we have about 12 lawyers who volunteer pro bono to help our veterans with their civil issues. And our committee is about 12 people on the committee. Another project we're working on is getting a full-time peer mentor coordinator, someone who can go throughout the state, deal with different veterans treatment courts, the ones that are setting up, the ones that are already established, try to get some cross-feed. And it ties into the committee. I called Melissa's office and said we were discussing trying to get an organization of the veterans treatment courts, because I work with Mansfield and Buffalo, but a lot of courts go off on their own. This will prevent reinventing the wheel and will give us some ideas on how to improve and find out from other people what's worked, what hasn't worked. Another big part is to get community agencies involved. At every one of our Veterans Treatment Court sessions, we have somebody from one of the organizations, United Methodist Center, that has food vouchers. So any veterans that's in there needs of food, they will give them a voucher right then and there. They will also make them aware of what other opportunities they have in the way of training at their facility. We also have somebody from the Housing Authority to deal with homeless vets, which we have a very high rate. Probably 3/4 of the vets we have a housing problem. I mean, they don't have stable housing. For those that aren't eligible for veterans benefits and treatment at the VA, we work with the local agencies that provide the treatment for substance abuse and mental illness coexisting, because we get several vets that may not have the service qualification, may have had less than honorable, or they're not eligible. On active duty, I worked in the Fitzsimmons Army Hospital. I was there in Vietnam, and we had like 5,000 patients there. And most of the injuries then were physical, and a lot of the mental issues in the TBI and PTS were not identified at that time. During Desert Storm, we got activated and set up the Aerovac net. And fortunately, we had very few casualties in Desert Storm. But we started to notice there were different kinds of casualties that we were dealing with. There were illnesses and parasites and bacteria and things that we had not come in contact with before that we had to deal with. So we could see the changing face of war and what we had to deal with when the troops returned. I think we've made a tremendous amount of progress on that score. And I thank all of you for you doing your part. It's nice to be back here and see a lot of old friends. And once again, thanks to Justice Stratton for all that she does, and thank you for continuing to do that when you quit your day job.